In this video, I'm going to show you how to fabricate a no-drip edge on a Corian solid surface countertop. The first step in the process of making a no-drip countertop edge profile is to cut a rabbet in the front of the countertop where your edge is. So first you're going to do your edge buildup. Then we're going to cut a rabbet along everywhere we want a no-drip or a marine edge. We need to make that 13/16 wide, and we need to make it a 1/16 inch deep. And the reason it's that size is because the profile that's used to make the profile of the no drip, the bit dictates how big we need to make this. So if you make it too wide, the bit won't cut properly. So it needs to be precisely at 13/16 wide. The depth can vary a little bit, but try to make it a 1/16 of an inch because it's much more difficult to route an 1/8 inch off of that than a 1/16. And it doesn't matter, there's no benefit from cutting it deeper. 1/16 is plenty. Let me demonstrate that right now. Again, I'm gonna show you how to make a no drip on a countertop. The countertop we're making is white. This is a black piece of material because it shows up better on camera, so you'll be able to see that rabbet after I cut it. So let me give you a demonstration. Okay, so it's exactly 13/16 wide. You can see that it's about a 1/16 inch deep, thereabouts. Again, that can vary a little bit, okay? On to the next step. Now that we cut the rabbet for the no drip, we need to make a profile piece. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make strips of material, and then we're going to run it through a router to create a profile of the no drip. And that's done with a router bit and a router table. But before we do that, we need to eliminate as much material as we can from this strip because we're gonna actually cut it down to 5/16. So we're gonna cut a strip that's 13/16 wide, and then we're going to flip it on edge and we're gonna cut that down to about 5/16 of an inch. The closer you get to 5/16, the better off you are. You want a nice smooth cut, but we're gonna actually use the face of the material to set down inside the bottom of the rabbet because that's the smoothest side. Some materials are rough on the back, so we wanna use that. So we'll be cutting off the back side of the material down to 5/16. I made this 13/16 wide. Actually, I made it a 1/16 wider because I am gonna cut it on the router table to make it give us two nice smooth edges here. But before I do that, I wanna cut this down to 5/16 on the table side. So I'm gonna use the face of the material. I'm gonna put it towards the fence, and I'm gonna be cutting off the back side of the material. So I have a router table, and I set this fence the distance I want away from the router bit, and this is a double flute router bit, so it cuts really smooth. And I'm going to send this cove insert piece through there, and I'm gonna cut actually both sides of it, and I'm gonna cut it down to 7/8 of an inch, so it fits perfectly into the rabbet that I have routed on the back side of the countertop. I put the router in the router base, and this section right there, the leading edge of that no drip, needs to be flush with the top of the table. It's gotta be exactly perfect. If it's not, the cove profile will not be properly set in the rabbet. All right, now it's time to profile this no drip insert piece. We have it cut out to the right height, and we got the right width. Now we need to take the face of the material and put that in towards the fence, and we need to make the nice edge. We need to have that up. We're gonna take 3 or 4 passes with that. So the first two is just gonna remove some material, and then we're gonna start to check it to the rabbet that we have on the countertop because we want this to be the exact height. And I'll show you this later after we fit this. We want it to be the exact height. So then when we go to sand it after it's glued in, it's much easier. But it takes a little bit to get it dialed in. Once you get the first piece fit, then all the rest of the pieces that you cut for that particular countertop will fit perfect. It shouldn't be a problem, but it takes a little bit to get this one. So let me set up the router table. We'll get the right width adjusted on it, and we'll run some pieces through. Also on my router table, I have 2 feather boards. If you don't, make something that is just this thickness so as it keeps it tight to the fence because this is gonna wanna rattle around in here as it passes the end of this feather board. A little bit of the end of this and a little bit of this portion is going to be destroyed by the router bit because you're not going to have enough pressure from the fence. So I just slide it over a little bit just to kind of get it started. You can see the bit in there. I'm adjusting the feather board to get it the right pressure and the right depth. That looks pretty close. So I'll try this first. The last thing I want to do is I push it down tight this way. And I have basically just a board that holds it down, but I don't want to put too much pressure. I push it down tight and then I kind of just ease up on it a little bit. And you're gonna clamp that on. Because this is a molding, you're almost using the router table like a shaper. And again, this first pass is going to be just a rough cut so we can see how this goes. I think we're ready. We'll go ahead and cut. This is my sample piece, different color in the countertop. This is how close it has to be. See how it's barely above the top of the countertop? Now this is a different color. This is our sample piece, our test piece. And I've made that so it's just barely proud of the top of that countertop so that this can be sanded down. You don't want this sample piece to be lower than the top of the countertop. Otherwise you'll have a big dip right here. So this fits perfect. It's nice on the outside here as well. And I've checked it in multiple spots and it all fits nice. So the next step in the process is we're gonna take this no drip insert and we're gonna fit it into the rabbet. On the outside corner, when they're an 1/8 inch radius all the way up to a 3/8 radius, you can miter the outside corner. So that's what we're gonna do in this instance. I'm gonna take this, and this is kind of rough here where it goes through the router table. So I'm going to cut a miter back here and I'm going to start on the outside corner and work my way back. All right, we got this side mitered and we'll go ahead and clamp that in tight. It's tight right here. And then we just have to cut the miter on this side of the side. Okay, so here's the miter on the other piece. We're gonna slide that up to it and we want that to be nice and tight. That's pretty good. Okay, the most important thing is you get a tight joint right here and here where the no drip insert meets the countertop. Because if you don't get it tight, you're gonna end up with a glue line and it's very hard to check it. And when you're clamping down and not forward, you just want it to make sure that that's tight. So let's get this cleaned up and we'll glue it in. When you're putting the glue on, be sure to put a double bead here and here. So when we put this insert piece in, we're gonna push it down tight before we push it up against the rabbet. And then you wanna make sure there's a nice bead of glue coming out there. Then I need you to take this and I need you to wiggle it back and forth to get all that glue out of there. And you want the glue to come up there. Otherwise, the no drip insert will sit at an angle and you'll have a glue line all the way down there, even though this is tight. When you put the clamps on, angle them down a little bit so it forces this insert in. After we get it glued up, we're gonna wipe away this glue right here because it's really hard to sand. All right, so it's all finished drying. I'll take these clamps off and show you how to sand it. I'm gonna sand the outside part of the no drip with a 5-inch sander. It's direct drive with a vacuum. And we're just gonna clean the glue up to make it flush with the outside of the edge. Now that we have the outside of the edge sanded with 150 grit, we're going to take a 5-inch disc sander with a 6-inch disc. This is 220 grit. You can use an electric sander or a air sander. And you're going to put it on an angle and you're gonna push down right inside where the no drip meets the countertop. And this is the finished countertop. It's got a nice smooth no drip edge, no glue lines. Profile is very smooth and easy to sand. Here's the outside corner. I hope this video helped you fabricate your next no drip edge. Thanks for watching.